Welcome to the Secular Scriptures. I'm Gail. Today is a short reading and a long commentary from the World English Bible, Genesis chapter 22, the binding or sacrifice of Isaac. Or as I like to call it, what the feck, Dad? This is an emotionally charged chapter, but the binding of Isaac is a pivotal plot point in the Bible. If you are only here for the reading and don't want to stay for this discussion, that is totally understandable. If you want to skip portions of it, use the timestamps in the description box below. In this case, I would love for you to stay for some history, literary analysis, comparative mythology, and conflicts, contradictions, and controversies. I think it will be worth your time. This is a secular Bible study, so please don't be so convicted that you need the angel of the Lord to stop you from proselytizing or sacrificing the tale on the altar of apologetics. I am not a biblical scholar. I just love these stories, and boy, are there a lot of stories packed in this little story. This story has many variations and interpretations depending on the tradition and translation, so list your sources and keep it on topic. The topics are Abraham, Isaac, and biblical sacrifices. I will lightly touch on the parallels between Isaac and Jesus, and we will revisit that when I eventually get to the New Testament, which will probably be 10 years from now at the rate I'm going. Settle in with a comforting beverage and maybe a favorite stuffy toy. You're probably going to need it. Come on. You want to cuddle? Yeah, there you go. We can do that. That's fine. We have a possum today. Genesis chapter 22. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, "Abraham." He said, "Here I am." He said, "Now take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go into the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will tell you of." Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son. He split the wood. Ouch! Could you not? I'm trying to read here. Ow! Could you not with the sharp things? Please. I love you, but I do not want you to tear up my hands. Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son. He split the wood for the burnt offering and rose up and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw the place far off. Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there. We will worship and come back to you." Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. He took in his hand, stop biting me. He took in his hand the fire and the knife, and they both went together. Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father." He said, "Here I am, my son." He said, "Here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham said, "God will provide himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." So they both went together. They came to the place which God had told him of. Abraham built the altar there and laid the wood in order, bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar on the wood. Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. Yahweh's angel called to him out of the sky and said, "Abraham, Abraham." He said, "Here I am." He said, "Don't lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked and saw that behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by the horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. Abraham called the name of the place, "Yahweh will provide." As it is said to this day, on Yahweh's mountain it will be provided. Yahweh's angel called to Abraham a 2nd time out of the sky and said, "I have sworn by myself, says Yahweh, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I will bless you greatly, and I will multiply your offspring greatly like the stars of the heavens. And like the sand which is on the seashore, your offspring will possess the gate of his enemies. All the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring, because you have obeyed my voice." So Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. Abraham lived at Beersheba. After these things, Abraham was told, Behold, Milcah, she also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz, his firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore Nahor, Abraham's brother. His concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Makkah. I am a child of the Appalachian Mountains. If something calls your name from the sky or from the bushes, when no one ought to be there, you ignore the heck out of it. You don't say, here I am, because nothing good is going to come of this. Abraham needed to know that little bit of folklore. I know that this tale is very much a product of its time and place, but as with all stories, the meaning and the message can change over time, and this one certainly has. From the Jewish perspective, the binding of Isaac is about faith, trusting God, and it ends the practice of child sacrifice and introduces substitutional atonement through animal sacrifice. From a Christian perspective, it's about unquestioning obedience to God. Could we please not be up there? Thank you. A contemporary theory within the Supplementary Hypothesis is that in the Elohist story, Abraham goes through with the sacrifice, and Isaac completely drops out of the narrative, which then picks up with Jacob. In another modern interpretation, where Abraham completes the sacrifice, Isaac goes into heaven. Then God restores him, allowing the biblical narrative to pick up again, uninterrupted. This is closely tied to both the older Jewish interpretations of Isaac being God's child and the Christian view that Isaac prefigures Jesus. The most common traditional Christian theological view, or typology, which is a method of interpreting Scripture where people, events, or institutions in the Old Testament are seen as foreshadowing or prefiguring those in the New Testament, is that Isaac's story mirrors Jesus, paralleling each character in both location and symbolism, only separated by time. In a plain reading of the narrative, this is a story about a father taking his son up to a mountain to kill him because a voice from the sky told him to. He doesn't go through with it due to divine intervention and kills a ram instead. He gains nothing he didn't have before. On a personal level, I have some big issues with this story. Like Abraham and Sarah, my husband and I had a heck of a time getting a living child, and I would slay a god before I'd touch a hair on my only son's head. Alright, before my nose turns red and steam starts coming out of my ears, let's get into the history of the text. When was it written? We have 2 sources that are combined to make this story. 850 BCE for the Elohist in the northern kingdom of Israel, and the 950s or the 600s or later BCE for the Yahwist in the southern kingdom of Judah. There were edits by the redactor in the 5th to 6th century BCE around the Babylonian exile. Let's hear it for the redactors on a beautiful job on this story. Yay! Literary analysis. Characters in order of appearance. We have God, Abraham, and Isaac in speaking roles. We have a donkey, 2 young men, and Yahweh's angel, kind of phasing in and out between the angel and Yahweh himself, and a ram. We also get a genealogy at the end, even though these characters don't appear. From Milcah and Nahor, we have Uz, Buz, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, I think, and Bethuel. Rebekah is Bethuel's daughter. And can we just pause a moment here to appreciate that Buz is a biblical name? Reumah has Tebah, Gaham, Tahash, and Makkah. It is set in the land of the Philistines, into the land of Moriah, up Mount Moriah, and back to Beersheba over the course of 3 days plus travel time. The Bible isn't clear about when this happens, but it's sometime between the agreement with King Abimelech, which I totally skipped over, and I'm not sorry about that, and Sarah's death, when Isaac is between 10 and 37 years old, with most scholars and sources putting him between 25 and 37 years old. even though the Bible clearly refers to him as a boy. Anyone who thinks that a boy of 10 to 15 years old can't carry a load of wood up a mountain has not met a farm kid who slings 100-pound bales of hay. And artists through history seem to favor this age range. The story is told from the third-person limited point of view in a straightforward narrative prose style with a he said, he did format. Literary devices. I only have one for you today. Genesis 22 is structured as a chiasm, where the beginning and ending mirror each other, and the climax is in the middle, highlighting a central theme. This can be arranged in a few different ways, but basically we have A, God commands filicide at Beersheba. B, up the mountain. C, conversation between Abraham and Isaac. D, binding and near sacrifice of Isaac. E, angel stops the sacrifice. D, substitution sacrifice of the ram. C, conversation with angel or God. B, back down the mountain. And then A, back to Beersheba. Usually I would do a rather pithy plot summary, but I think you got it right there. Comparative mythology. This is going to be short today. Within the Abrahamic traditions, we have a few different associated stories which you can explore on your own. The first is the variation where Abraham actually sacrifices Isaac, which I will talk about later. Then there is the Islamic story of Abraham sacrificing Ishmael with Ishmael's knowledge and consent, where Ishmael actually pushes for it because he knows that this is what God wants. Using typology, the story of Jesus' life and crucifixion has parallels to Isaac's. The location is the same, just 1,000 years apart. Both are children of the Spirit with miraculous conceptions, however you want to define that. We have the arrival to Mount Moriah on a donkey, which takes 3 days. Isaac carries the wood, Jesus carries the cross. Both are associated with the sacrificial lamb. Depending on your preferred version, it's possible both came back to life after actually being sacrificed. While this text does not say that, and I want to emphasize that in the Bible it does not say that anymore, it is a viable interpretation for Isaac within this world-building universe. I'll explain a bit more on this later. Outside of the Bible, there are loads of child sacrifices in stories, but two have strong parallels to Isaac's story. There's a Hindu myth telling of how King Harishchandra vows to sacrifice his son Rohita to Vishnu, and Rohita finds a substitute who, like Isaac, is bound to the stake but then somehow saved. From Greek mythology, King Agamemnon was commanded to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia to the goddess Artemis to gain favorable winds for his ships so he could get to Troy and kick butt there. He does, and he does. I'm keeping this section very short today because I'm about to bombard you with more bloody Bible stuff. Consider yourself forewarned. Conflicts, contradictions, and controversies. And this is going to be a big one. So we have some conflicting information within the text. Of course we do. It's the Bible. I don't think that this one is a big deal, but as I've said before, I am distinctly on Team Hagar, so it is a little bit annoying to me. In chapter 22, verse 2, he, God, said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you." Now, I have to stop myself from saying Moria every time I read Moriah, and if I accidentally say Moria in here, I am sorry. I am a Tolkien fan through and through. Leaving aside the absolute horror of this verse, Isaac is not Abraham's only son. Ishmael, his older brother, is still alive. Arguably, Isaac may not even be Abraham's son, though he is certainly Sarah's son. So we have three main interpretations in this. One, he is the promised child, meaning he's the only one who counts here. Two, he's the son of the Spirit, making him unique among the people of his nation, this being the God did it version of the story, and Yahweh is twisting a cruel knife here, probably because Abraham attempted to intercede for the cities of the plains. Number three, Ishmael has been cast out and therefore is not the son of Abraham's household anymore. rendering Isaac the only son. I'm just going to tell you that this line and these three interpretations of it only add to my frustration of this tale. This is God being shitty on multiple levels, and I dislike it intensely. The second and probably biggest issue comes from the Supplementary Hypothesis and the combination of the Elohist versus Yahwist storylines. In the tale, as presented today, Isaac comes down off the mountain and lives a full life. It is likely that in the Elohist version, he does not. To see this, you need a Bible that preserves the names of Yahweh, often all caps Lord, and Elohim, often interpreted as God, but essentially it breaks down like this. You have the Elohist from verses 1 through 10 in 6 and 8. They both went together. The redactor coming in with combining both in verses 11 through 14, and then you have the Yahwist in verses 15 through 18, where he's rescued by the angel. And then back to the Elohist in verse 19, Abraham returned to his young men. It does not say they both returned. In short, Abraham may have actually sacrificed his son Isaac because God said so. There are also some slightly later writings about scattering Isaac's ashes on Mount Moriah. Some take this literally, and some say it is figurative. Since large parts of Isaac's later story are almost a carbon copy of Abraham's, it's assumed to be just that, or a parallel tradition. I have no opinions on that yet, but we can poke at it for fun in an upcoming video. Conflicting information within the religion. The first potential conflict is where we have God testing one of his prophets. Some later passages and doctrines are a little on this one. But to be honest, this is a pattern going forward for a while in much more ruthless ways. If y'all think this is bad, just wait till Exodus and Numbers. Whee! So I don't see this as an issue in the text. I see it as an issue with the interpretation of the nature of God. And this is not my circus, and these are definitely not my COVID and Hep C infected monkeys. In the real world, the general practice of human sacrifice and the sacrifice of the firstborn for the time of King Josiah of Judah from 640 to 609 BCE did happen. We have archaeological evidence of this, but it was not widespread in the region. Moloch was arguably the practice of casting babies or children into a sacrificial fire, not a specific god, though that interpretation works fine for the story. We see this mostly in reference to the Canaanites, but also to the Israelites engaging in these practices, often phrased as passing through the fire. As mentioned above, the story was written during the transition between human sacrifice and animal sacrifice in real life, though the story is set well before that. And up to this point, we have actually not seen this happen in the story at all. Now, buckle in because I've got a dump truckload of Bible verses coming at you about human sacrifice and when Yahweh likes it and when he doesn't. Generally, I like to keep in the time and place of the story at hand, but I want you to see the pattern here. I've taken the liberty of paraphrasing some of them so that I don't die of boredom. So, in order of the books of the Bible as they appear, not in the order they were written. We have Genesis 22, which we just read, where God is like, hey, Abe, do this horrible thing. Just kidding, don't do that, but cool, you were willing to, bro. Leviticus 18:21 says, you shall not give any of your offspring to sacrifice them to Molech, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Numbers 31, the slaughter of the Midianites and the sacrifice or enslavement of the virgin girls. Note that I have summarized from the NIV. They fought against Midian as the Lord commanded Moses and killed every man. Now Moses is mad that they didn't kill every one. Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. The Lord said to Moses, divide the spoils equally between the soldiers who took part in the battle and the rest of the community. Set apart as tribute for the Lord, out of every 500, whether people, cattle, donkeys, or sheep. Take this tribute from their half share and give it to Eleazar the priest as the Lord's part. For the Israelites' half, select one out of every 50, whether people, cattle, donkeys, sheep, or other animals. Give them to the Levites, who are responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. The Midianite virgin girls being set apart as tribute to Yahweh, along with the livestock, likely refers to human sacrifice. Again, Jewish sources disagree, which is a favorite pastime, most saying that they were sacrificed on the altar with the livestock, others that they were enslaved to the Levites and the livestock added to the herds. I think that this actually can be both. And remember, I am not a biblical scholar, so this and $5 will get you a cup of coffee. The way I read this, the virgin girls from the soldiers' share were sacrificed, and the ones from the Israelites' share could have potentially been kept as slaves. No matter how you interpret this passage, yes, it is genocide. Suck it up. Deuteronomy 12:31. You must not do the same for the Lord your God, because every abhorrent thing that the Lord hates they have done for their gods. They would even burn their sons and daughters in the fires of their gods. From the NRSVUE, Deuteronomy 13:12. If you hear it said about one of the towns that the Lord your God is giving you to live in, that the scoundrels from among you have gone out and led the inhabitants of the town astray, saying, let us go and serve other gods whom you have not known, then you shall inquire and make a thorough investigation. If the charge is established that such an abhorrent thing has been done among you, you shall put the inhabitants of that town to the sword, utterly destroying it and everything in it, even putting its livestock to the sword. All of its spoil you shall gather into its public square, and then burn the town and all of its spoil with fire as a whole burnt offering to the Lord your God. It shall remain a perpetual ruin, never rebuilt. Do not let anything devoted to destruction stick to your hand, so that the Lord may turn from his fierce anger and show you compassion in his compassion, and in his compassion multiply you as he swore to your ancestors. Jephthah's daughter, variously named Celia, Tanah, and Ada in later works. In Judges 11:30-40, Jewish versions disagree about what happens, most saying that he kept his vow and sacrificed her on the altar as a burnt offering, which is exactly what the Bible says. While one rabbinic tradition says that she remained a virgin her whole life, dedicated to the Lord instead of becoming a mother, thereby sacrificing Jephthah's line. The most commonly agreed upon interpretation is that he did indeed barbecue Ash, his only kid. Note that he did not lose God's blessing and is counted among the righteous in the Hall of Faith. See Mindshift's video on this topic, Judges Pure Horror, Episode 7 of the Secular Bible Study, and 13 Examples of God's Shocking Misogyny. 1 Samuel 15:3, if you're not tired of these yet. Saul loses his kingship because he doesn't devote to destruction all that were in the city, but instead saves the king and some livestock for sacrifice to Yahweh when he was supposed to do it all right there in the city. Devoting a city to destruction was a common practice in the region, not exclusive to the Israelites, and it was a divine command that everyone of that town or city be sacrificed to a god in war, and all of their possessions utterly destroyed. Jeremiah 7:30-31 condemns it, and then immediately in 32 and 33 commands and condones it from the King James Version. For the children of Judah have done evil in my sight, saith the Lord. They have set their abominations, meaning idols, in the house which is called by my name, to pollute it. And they have built the high places of Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my heart. Therefore, behold the days, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter, for they shall bury Tophet till there be no place. And the carcasses of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall fray them away. The objection here is not the act of sacrificing humans, but of sacrificing humans to other gods. Isn't that lovely? Chapter 19 is basically ditto. Ezekiel 20-31. Again, we have mixed messages. First, do so, then to not, then threats. To be clear, this is about how the worship of idols and other gods is bad, not about human sacrifice itself being bad. This is from the NIV. Therefore, the Son of Man, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. It is also your ancestor. In this also your ancestors blasphemed me by being unfaithful to me. Or when I brought them into the land I had sworn to give them, and they saw any high hill or any leafy tree, they therefore offered their sacrifices, made offerings that aroused my anger, presented their fragrant incense, and poured out their drink offerings. Then I said to them, what is this high place you go to? It is called Bamal to this day. Therefore say to the Israelites, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Will you defile yourselves the way your ancestors did and lust after their vile images? When you offer your gifts, the sacrifice of your children in the fire, you continue to defile yourselves with all your idols to this day. Am I to let you inquire of me, you Israelites? As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I will not let you inquire of me. Essentially, this is a big old Yahweh hissy fit. It reminds me of a narcissistic ex-boyfriend. You didn't do what I wanted you to do, despite me telling you something else, and now I'm mad, so I'm not talking to you, and you're going to pay big time. Right. And our ultimate elephant in the room is Jesus. But we'll talk about him way later. Do you see the pattern here? If it's a sacrifice to Yahweh, cool. If it's a sacrifice to not Yahweh, not cool. While he certainly prefers livestock, he will take people too, though he'd rather have them in battle. If you made it that far, congrats. But wait, there's more. Contradictions with society and science. Let's talk about the fine art of dispatching animals. It's personal story time. You're going to get a few of these here. I'm a farmer. My poultry are split between egg layers and meat birds. Both get plenty of fresh air, grass, and bugs. Their quality of life is very important to me. Their health and happiness matters right up until the end. For my meat birds, this means the least stressful, least painful, fastest end. This involves some trickery on my part. Food is a great way of getting a bird not to panic after being carried to an unfamiliar place of doom. The modern meat industry has this down to an absolute science and is always working towards making dispatch less stressful, less painful, and more humane. Aside from the ethical necessity, there is a practical reason for this. Some people can taste fear in the meat. I am one of those people. Fear literally spoils all of my hard work. And when I say love is the most important ingredient, I mean that. What is the point of this personal parable? Everything I talk about is true for the biblical animal sacrifices too. If it showed fear or pain, it was not a fitting sacrifice. More on that in a later video. Abraham, being a wildly successful herdsman, understands the importance of not letting the critter know it's about to die. He half lies to Isaac, saying God will provide the lamb. And the irony here is not lost on me. If Isaac is God's actual kid, and that is not a lie, it's just an analogy of Isaac being a very happy, beloved, unsuspecting lamb, a fitting sacrifice to his barbecue-loving God. And that is all sorts of problematic when applied to an actual human being. Maybe the scourging of Jesus is starting to make a tiny bit more sense. He's not actually a lamb, he's a man. Which brings us to controversies. Child sacrifice in the modern world. Lovely. Or when parents are willing to or believe that they've been told by God to sacrifice their children. Oh my God, y'all. Something I hear over and over from ex-evangelicals when they ask their parents, if you truly thought God was telling you to sacrifice me, your own child, would you do it? And the parents can't say no. Folks, I cannot even begin to tell you how deeply that bothers me. Like to the core of my being, what is wrong with these people? And a quick Google search has a headline pop up, why you should sacrifice your kids exactly as Abraham did on Mount Moriah. Of course, they mean figuratively, not literally, but in reading this essay, I'm going to plunk this down into how to traumatize your kids, even while trying not to. Also, this is totally not okay. No, not even a little tiny bit. That link is down below in the description in my sources. From a biblical Christian point of view, child sacrifice is wrong, clearly wrong. From a modern ethical point of view, it is also clearly wrong. In our society, with all of our miracles of modern medicine and safety measures, I cannot understand why anyone would say, "Here I am," to this Bronze and Iron Age god of blood and war demanding the life of one's beloved child. And I don't care if they are an adult or not. Oh my God. What are you even thinking? What deal are you making with this devil? He promised Abraham a big old chunk of land. What is he promising you? And how is it that possibly worth the life of your baby, no matter how old they are? This is so messed up. Mental illness and hearing God, aka religious psychosis. Note that I am not a mental health professional. I have a minor in psychology from over 25 years ago. I am totally not qualified to offer anything other than a pet and lair opinion here. Religious psychosis typically involves delusions, strongly held false beliefs, and hallucinations, which are sensory experiences without external stimuli. For example, someone might believe that they are a prophet or hear divine voices giving them instructions. More personal stories, with the caveat that this may make some of you extremely uncomfortable. My family tends to be the type to see ghosts. I saw ghosts when I was a kid. I didn't believe in the Easter Bunny, and I saw the Easter Bunny. I didn't believe in Jesus, and I had a vision of him looking like Da Vinci's Renaissance painting boyfriend, descending on a beam of golden light with the Holy Ghost dove form, and then I had a whole conversation with the man. It was actually a good one, and it did help, and no one died. What I didn't do was fall down in worship and instantly convert to Christianity because I know my own brain. I am very good at mental visualization. Since I had the stroke, I can't play a radio in my head anymore, and thankfully I no longer see ghosts. But before that, I could. Books are still full of colorful mental movies with landscape backgrounds, and if you say spoon, a picture of a spoon pops into my head, morphing into the various forms that a spoon can take. None of this means that Renaissance painting Jesus or the Easter Bunny or ghosts or demons are actually real. This has to do with a creative brain blurring the lines between imagination and reality, high-stress situations, illnesses, and various sleep states, and an overactive occipital cortex causing mild hallucinations. Know that drug use and religious euphoria impact the same areas of the brain. I was never into drugs, but I have been into spirituality at various times in my life and felt deeply connected to the divine. I know all of this now, but because my family was the type to see ghosts, ghosts were real. Of course they're real. We've seen them, right? Because stories are powerful things too, and I still do love stories. Now, take someone like me, who doesn't have a minor in psychology from over 25 years ago, steep them in religious tea for their entire lives, and when Renaissance painting Jesus and the Spirit of God in the form of a dove come down through that window on golden sunbeams, crack some jokes, gently remind you that this is your wedding day and you're here to marry the man you love, not murder a minister, and then swallows you into a cosmic horror of space and time before dumping you back on the bathroom floor in a puddle of tulle, feeling ever so slightly better, you may think that all of that dissociation crap is real and convert. Go one step further and take someone who really believes, who has never heard of psychology or science, someone who lives a nomadic herding lifestyle in the Bronze Age hills of the Levant and thinks that dreams and blood magic are real, that chopping animals in half and cutting off small body parts will somehow divinely secure a piece of land 500 years down the road, someone who thinks that when smoke goes up, God has accepted the sacrifice because they know jack all about atmospheric conditions and particle physics. And then they hear a voice in the sky that says, "Go for a hike and kill your kid." Now, I want you to think about all of those people who sold their cars and quit their jobs because some charlatan preacher on TikTok from halfway across the world says Jesus was coming back on a white horsey in the clouds someday in late September, or October, or he means soon. A woman gave her kids to CPS. What if the guy told her to do worse? This is how we get Jonestown or the Branch Davidians or Good News International Ministries. These people sacrificed their children and themselves, willingly or not, for lies. Did Abraham do anything different other than stop in one version? Stories are powerful things, and if someone is prone to bouts of religious psychosis, they can believe and do terrible things. Friends, if a voice tells you to kill your kids, that ain't God and you need to get help. Lastly, we need to talk about religious trauma. This is defined as psychological harm experienced as a result of oppressive, abusive, or exploitative religious practices, benefits, or institutions. It can have a broad definition, and the trauma doesn't have to happen at a church to qualify. In fact, half of my own religious trauma happened well outside of the houses of worship. They just sort of set it in cement, so to speak. I want you to put yourself in Isaac's sandals here. A boy or a man between 10 and 37 years of age, the obedient son of a powerful and domineering father who speaks directly to God. Abraham is not a bad guy all the time, but there is no defying him. Just look what happened to Uncle Lot and Brother Ishmael. So, when you, Isaac, realize there is no sheep, the dawning horror of what is about to happen creeps over you. Is this a thing you can run from, or is this inevitable? If you are Isaac, you realize the futility of fighting against your father. He is literally the man next to God. Or maybe you don't see this coming. You trust your loving father. And then when the pyre is set and he binds your hands from behind and lays you on the wood, only then does the cold, hard reality of the situation come crashing down upon you. The knife cuts, or doesn't by some miracle, and no matter how your story goes from there, you always have to live with the moment where your father nearly ended you because a voice in the clouds told him to. How do you go on from there? I have some channel recommendations related to the discussion. For another secular reaction to this chapter, the episode Everything Wrong with Genesis 22 in the Bible by the Friendly Atheist is worth a watch. With the caveat that I really dislike typology, it is instructive to watch the whole Bible with George Crabb's episode Abraham and Isaac Foreshadowing of Jesus in Genesis 22. It is short and perfectly illustrates the Christian point of view about this story. I also have two general recommendations. H.G. Roberts is an ex-evangelical who deals primarily with the subject of religious trauma. His topics can be very emotionally heavy, but are also very helpful. C.J. Cornthwaite is an ex-evangelical progressive Christian who takes an academic look at the Bible and, like H.G., emphasizes the importance of good mental health within the religion. From the Jewish perspective, the binding of Isaac is a complex and multi-layered exploration of faith, testing, divine mercy, and the prohibition of human sacrifice. The meaning and implications of the story have evolved over time. From the Christian perspective, it is the unwavering faith and total obedience to God, foreshadowing God's ultimate sacrifice of his son Jesus. The story shows that true faith means willingness to obey God's commands, even when they seem difficult or counterintuitive, and that obedience is often tested to reveal the depth of that faith. This event is interpreted as a prelude to the crucifixion, as God provides a ram in place of Isaac, just as he would later provide a sacrificial lamb, Jesus, for humanity. And I apologize, I did not write down the source of that quote. From a modern secular perspective, this story is a culmination of a lifetime of religious psychosis, a horrifying episode of child abuse, and illustrates the cruelty and manipulation of this emotionally stunted deity. If we do get the meter of progress nudged ever so slightly in the right direction, with an animal taking the place of a human in this bloody barbecue saga. So, questions. Tell me how you think Isaac felt about this. What about Abraham? What do you think God was thinking here? What does this say about God's character? What does this say about Abraham's character? I want to thank you for sticking with me if you've made it to the end. I know this was a long one. I hope the video was thought-provoking. If you liked it, please like and subscribe and drop a comment about how you interpret this story and what variations you like. Most of my references are in the description box below this video. I did forget a few, and I apologize. I hope you'll join me next time on the Secular Scriptures for Genesis chapter 23, the death of Sarah. Now, go hug your kids, if you have them, and pinky swear to them that you would never listen to anyone who tells you to harm them.